I actually edit these and superimpose some images and then sell them in China. You'd be surprised what you can get for
AliExpress.
fantasy football porn in China, man. Whew, it's
And
crazy.
and welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast. My name is Michael Cipes. You can find me on Twitter at FFBlitz, and I'm here with extra partners tonight. And please ignore what Shane just said. That is totally not true. But we're here with
That
Jeremy.
actually sells better in China too. Extra
Sells better.
partners.
Yeah, happy Friday to everybody. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyMadman.
And Shane Manila.
Matt Shane is the worst, and yeah, the more partners, the better it sells. Just remember that.
I think that's true.
Oh, hey, and Pat Fitzmaurice is here with us.
What?
Pat, yay!
Gentlemen, thanks. I'm on so often. I feel like the fifth Beatle here, like Brian Epstein or something. So it's great, man. I like the fourth Dynasty Trades HQ guy. It's quite an honor. Thanks for having me.
100%. You know, after being with you for what? We were with you for like 3 hours on your show the last time.
Yeah. That was fun.
We're going to try to have you on as much as possible so that we can add up to the 3 hours that we spent on your show. So
That's right. Put it on my tab.
Hey, speaking of tab, I'm going to see you in like 4 weeks in Vegas, right?
Yes. Does that mean everything's on my tab there?
He's hoping.
Is that what you were getting at?
No, I was just talking about that we'll hang out at the draft. It's Pat, a lot of times when we have guests, we do the news and some stuff first before we bring them in. But there was so much craziness and so much stuff going on in the NFL this week. I know Jeremy said that when he talked to you about coming on the show, you're like, I want to get in right at the beginning because I want to talk about all this stuff with you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much. God, the last week. I thought the first week of free agency was going to take everything off the table, leave nothing for this week, but it's just kind of kept rolling. So, yeah, man, let's get into it.
Awesome. So before we do that, though, Shane, tell everybody about campustocanton.com.
CampusToCanton.com. Awesome website. They sponsor our show, but that's not why I'm saying they're an awesome website. They just happen to be an awesome website, and they're sponsoring our show.
Yeah, we're glad they're sponsoring us. Yeah.
Yeah. And, as we've talked about before, there's going to be some Campus Canton aspect to one of the HQ leagues that we start this year.
Can't wait.
Of at least 2 that I've been told are going to start. I don't know how many are going to start. And if you want to be good at that and not get your doors blown off by me, I suggest you subscribe to Campus Canton so you can at least keep up, because I am going to dominate you. So if you need to learn how to play Devi better or Campus Canton as a format, I'd say go sign up for the Campus Canton website.
I need to type this down, these notes.
HQ is the promo code. We kept it simple for me, HQ, and then I get it wrong every week.
I just typed this down to remember that you said you're going to dominate everybody. So it's noted.
Well, I was going to mention all the people that are in all our other listener leagues. They will all be able to say that's not true. He doesn't dominate. But also for those of you who missed last week's show, we actually had Felix on as one of the hosts with us, and he went over campustocanton.com and we talked a lot about it. So if you missed last week's show, go ahead and go download that now and check it out. But we have a lot of news. So Pat, how about which is your favorite thing that happened this week out of all the stuff that happened?
Out of all of it, yeah.
Can I?
No, I asked Pat.
No, but I know what Pat's favorite thing was.
Then why do you always have to answer for the guests?
But I know what Pat's favorite thing was.
All right, let Shane try to read my mind here.
I think he absolutely loved the Devontae Adams trade.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
I love Devontae choosing the Raiders over the Packers. That was awesome.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, that's interesting what that leaves our wide receiver room looking like. And, we lose Marquez Valdez-Scantling too. We even lost Equanimous St. Brown to the Bears. I mean, there's just nothing left. Equanimous St. Brown, I was saying on our podcast the other day, it's like the scene in The Grinch where he's stealing all the Who's stuff and like he even swipes the crumb away from the mouse. Like Equanimous St. Brown is the crumb.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, like I don't know what they're gonna do. There's nothing left as far as veteran free agents unless you want to go with a Julio Jones AJ Green combo, which would have been great in 2013, but probably not so much in 2022. I mean, they're just going to have to like double, triple dip on rookie receivers, I guess, and hope that Rodgers is actually willing to throw to some of these guys, because he hasn't always been willing to trust wide receivers with their imprecise route running early in their careers.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I kind of think one of the takeaways from this is that it's going to make both A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones pretty valuable this year. Like, there's no way they don't throw a higher percentage of passes to their backs, to their tight ends, and probably just run the ball more. And, you know, like, Aaron Jones has always had some pretty big games whenever Devontae has been hurt. And I wouldn't be surprised, even though, like, down the stretch, and I think their last, like, 8, 9, 10 games, Dillon actually outcarried Jones. I think this is going to really preserve Jones' value, even if he maybe has a minority share of the rushing load.
I just want your confidence in Juwan Winfrey, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and let's say, you know, Amari Rodgers isn't real high. Is that what you're saying?
That might be the case. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see where these rookies go, because like, the Chiefs are probably going to get a rookie receiver. The Packers are probably going to get 2. And yet, like, the Falcons need some also. Like, there are going to be some severe landing spots in both directions, good and bad. That's really going to be shaking up the value of this rookie class. And I know you guys had Rebar on a couple weeks ago, and Rich is a big believer in having the rookie draft beforehand. The rookie draft beforehand, because then you kind of have to, like, you know, stake your territory as far as what you think of these guys. But man, I mean, it's not like the rookies' fault that some of them are going to land up in Green Bay and others are going to end up in Atlanta. You know, like, that's not necessarily a reflection of their skill, but that's going to be a huge value change to the guys going to those 2 spots.
It's funny too, because that works with Jeremy's premise of saying the wide receivers are the best part of this rookie class. So for teams like that who really need the wide receivers, I do think it's funny. You know, I'm not a big fan of Rodgers personally. I do think it's funny how he's always had all these crying and complaining and everything. Then he finally re-signs, and then everybody jumps ship and goes away.
I mean, everybody's a strong word. They gave him one receiver, a very good receiver, very elite level, but literally that's all they've ever done for him. They're like, you get one. That's all you can have. You can have Jordy, and then you can have Devontae. You can have a little overlap, not much.
And we're going to take your safety blankets away all the time because apparently we don't like you, which, you know, I mean, they did. They took guys away that he...
In fairness to the Packers, no one should like Aaron Rodgers, right?
Well, that's true.
We're all on the same page there.
And when I
like
said
him
everybody,
as a quarterback.
But when I said everybody, I'm talking about what Pat said about like all the wide receivers leaving, and now he's got this group of not the greatest set of wide receivers.
Equanimeous, St. Brown, and MVS.
Oh my God. Okay, fine. What I said is wrong. Who cares?
No, I like what you said.
I was going to say, Jesus Christ, that's so temperamental tonight. I was just going to say the fact that losing Equanimeous, St. Brown, and MVS actually even registers tells you how bad their wide receiver core was, because that you should not even, like, that should be one of those, like, you didn't even know. But Pat probably like woke up, read the paper, and was like crestfallen, like, I can't believe they lost Valdez-Scantling.
Even Equanimeous. And the thing is, like, now we know that it'll be easier to pronounce their names, but that's not much to be happy about. It's a good draft though to need wide receivers. I mean, a decent one. I think all drafts are. I mean, wide receivers are churned out at a really great pace nowadays, but definitely a lot of teams that need them, and it's a pretty cool draft when you want to take them a little bit higher. But you know, I think they'll be in good shape, and I like Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback. Like, and honestly, I'd hang out with him before Ben Roethlisberger, let's say. So he's not like the worst guy. But
no, definitely
no.
And there's less a chance of getting arrested.
I'd rather hang out with Ben. But Pat, didn't they re-sign Robert Tonyan? Were you happy about that?
So I think he's just a guy, but like, I actually do think that spikes his value. He was the most obvious sell in the world last year.
Yeah, right.
And like, I traded him for Kenyon Drake in some league, and I was delighted with the Kenyon Drake haul for Tonyan, you know. But now, I mean, I think whereas I thought he was just a screaming sell last year. Not like now I want to buy him back. I wonder if that guy would take Kenyon Drake for Tunyon this year.
I want to name the episode that my Kenyon Drake haul. You don't really hear that too much.
And Mike, I gotta say, like, so if I know how you feel about Rodgers, and the funny thing is, like, we've been made to feel sorry for Rodgers all these years because the Packers keep refusing to draft a first-round wide receiver, and Rodgers knew they weren't going to be able to afford Adams when he re-signed. He didn't care, like, so. I mean, that's anyone who felt sorry for Rodgers that they weren't getting him specifically a wide receiver. I mean, it would have been the smart thing for the team to do, but like, any idea that Rodgers was like somehow cheated out of getting a quality wide receiver and then like is willing to let Devontae Adams walk so he can cash in.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's weird to hear somebody say they feel sorry for him, but Shane, so then what was your big news then? Because you jumped all over it when I asked Pat, but what out of all these news?
Oh no, I just wanted to make fun of Pat because he lost Devontae Adams.
Thanks.
You wanted to make fun of him.
That's mean.
No, yeah, it is, but whatever. No, but so Pat, who are you hoping for? You're hoping for a little Traylon Burks and Jahan Dotson?
I kind of like Olave. I
Okay.
want Olave. Like, I think he's the most fully formed route runner, so he probably would pair the best with Aaron Rodgers. And he's fast. I mean, they need a speed receiver for sure. So then it's like I'm open to other. I would take Christian Watson in the second, or Sky Moore, or any of these guys. Like, I'm kind of agnostic about the talent of this top tier of guys. Like, I'm not. A lot of people have staked out claims to who they really like, the Traylon Burks truthers, the Garrett Wilson truthers, the Drake London guys. I don't know, man. I'm just like, I'm kind of willing to let it all go on landing spot. And I'm going to have a dilemma, Shane, in the league we playing together where I'm picking 103. That's going to be an awkward spot. That's going to be a really awkward spot.
Because it goes,
it's a good spot.
101, you're like, oh, well, this is no doubt about it. It's Breece Hall. 102, it's super flex. I have to draft Malik Willis because he's going to get drafted second overall by the Detroit Lions or whatever. And then third overall, you go,
Yes.
I guess it's going to be, I mean, for me, it's Traylon Burks, but that's as of right now. If he falls into the second round and Drake London's in the first round and Garrett Wilson's in the first round, well, then I'm going to have to relook at that. But yeah, I mean, there's worse spots to be than 103, like 106 when you're looking at Kenny Pickett and you're like, am I really going to do this?
Answer no.
For Pat, for you, obviously you're a big Green Bay fan. Then for you at 103, does that make a difference for you for what you picked? Like if Green Bay takes a wide receiver that you like, but you know that there's a better wide receiver at a better landing spot, would you take that better wide receiver at 103 or would you take the guy from your team?
See, the thing is, I don't know who. I'm not certain enough that there is someone better, probably. Like, no matter which of the top 5 or so go, like, I could make a case for ordering those guys any which way. So I'm more likely to just take the good guy who winds up in Green Bay or Kansas City.
Yeah. See, I just mean, because that's like a question that a lot of people have when people ask us about drafting and stuff, they say, do I go with what I like and what I want to watch and the team that I watch, or do I go with it? Shane's shaking his head because Shane wouldn't care if the person was from the Eagles. He would take the better quote unquote player than who's on the Eagles.
No, because I talked myself into Jalen Reagor.
Well, but that's different though. You talk yourself into it sometimes.
JJ Arcega-Whiteside in consecutive seasons going,
but
no, this is going to, I like this. Like, I mean, you could have went Reagor or Jefferson, really same guy. No real difference.
Hey, and speaking of Jefferson, when we get to trades later, I saw you traded Justin Jefferson.
Oh, I made a big swap.
Yeah,
trade.
That was a big trade, but we'll save it for later in the show.
Pat said though about agnostic to these receivers because there's a sort of group, like just a tier of guys, and the best landing spot. Normally I say, rank your wide receivers and then draft them based on, don't worry about landing spot. If you really think there are, guys that are head and shoulders above others, take them because eventually they're going to start because they're good. And then, you're not going to worry about when they were drafted, they were the third wide receiver on a good team or something. They went to a good team. You had them ranked highly. Don't let that scare you. But what Pat's saying, I think, makes a lot of sense because we know that these teams that need wide receivers are going to pass the football and then take, agnostically to those wide receivers, doesn't matter. Take the one at the best, what you think is the best landing spot. I like that.
Do you feel that way though, Jeremy? Because I mean, you're the guy, you cheer for the team that is providing 2 of the top 5 receivers in this draft. Like, is that, are you agnostic about the top 5 yourself, or?
I agree with most of the group of players, but not as much, in a way, but not as much, because I do think, I'm tipping my hand here, I do think Garrett Wilson is like a can't miss wide receiver, like things that you don't have to worry about with him. They talk about, against the press. That was true with Ohio State, all our wide receivers, but he's always able to create space no matter what route he runs, inside, outside, the speed. I think he's the best overall, I think, wide receiver prospect to me. I love Treylon Burks. Drake London, maybe I've liked him for a while too, but I do think that there's enough of them. And people used to say, this draft is over by like 1.06. I don't agree with that. I think there's still a lot of talent throughout the entire first round, especially at wide receiver. But yeah, I'm biased toward, and this goes back to, Debbie, when Ohio State scored Garrett Wilson, I was excited. Now, we didn't know what Olave was going to become. He wasn't as highly recruited. Down the line, you see him go to Ohio State. You're like, okay, I think I'm going to take a flyer and draft this kid too, when he was available. But he wasn't a guy that everybody talked about, that all the college teams, the big ones, wanted in their program. So Garrett Wilson came in as a known quantity, and he delivered. So there's all that kind of going into it, and just watching him get better all the time. So, but I'm with you on Olave, like the downfield threat. We know he can catch the football, and just, no matter where it's thrown, he's just able to pick it out of the sky. But I think Wilson's probably the best overall receiver in this class. But I do think it's a jumbled. I'm cool with 105 and you guys taking whoever you want and getting the scraps, so to speak. I really would be, because that's still a really good wide receiver. And landing spot, like you said, it's going to dictate how those guys are used. And I think I wouldn't argue with you in this class, but I'm happy to have any first rounder in this class. I am.
It's funny to hear 105 being the scraps, No,
I've done one rookie draft so far. And I don't know how I feel about this. I drafted Matt Corral, which doesn't feel great right now. But then I also got Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson. And I already see myself gravitating towards those 2 wide receivers. Treylon Burks feels like AJ Brown. And like Jeremy was saying, Garrett Wilson, I disagreeing with Pat here. I think Garrett Wilson's probably the most complete prospect in this draft, because he doesn't fall down as soon as someone touches him, like Chris Olave. And look, if it's windy in Green Bay, right? Chris Olave might go down quickly. I'm just saying. Aaron Rodgers wouldn't like that. I think Garrett Wilson would fit there. He's not going to. Where did the Packers pick that? I guess that's obviously going to play a big role in that.
22 and 28, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's Treylon Burks and Jahan Dotson territory. That's not bad.
Could be. I do like Dotson.
And Shane, you have a whole bunch of picks with their Eagles, right? In that first round, they've got a lot of picks coming.
Yeah, the Eagles have a ton of picks. Every mock draft has them taking Treylon Burks or Drake London,
you think
Singletary, and it's like a different defensive lineman every week.
So you think it's wide receiver, defensive lineman, maybe in that order? They go for a first round wide receiver like that?
I hope not. You were saying, this class is deep in wide receiver, and I've made fun of this class a lot. And it's more that it doesn't have the standout Jamar Chase. It doesn't have the Jonathan Taylors. It doesn't have like that. Like, oh, okay, there's like 4 guys that I just know are going to be monsters. It feels like there's like 7 guys that could be really good. I just don't know which one it's going to end up being. So with that said, I think the Eagles would be much better served going wide receiver in the second round. And just going all defense in the first round and just rebuild the defense. I mean, just straight up, they need cornerbacks, safeties. They love defensive linemen. So as much as I don't want to talk any IDP stuff,
hey, and the Eagles have gone high on wide receivers too many times. It hasn't worked out.
Yeah, look, they're 1 for 3. You know what I mean? That's not a good hit rate. Like, they got Devonta Smith, great. You struck out really bad on Jalen Reagor. And in case anyone forgets, they drafted JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
We can't give
over
that guy that much attention in one show.
No, you can't. You've already mentioned his name. Yeah.
Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf. So.
But you know what though? When Davante Adams thing happened, everybody thought that was like the biggest thing ever. And then, what? 2 days ago now?
Oh wait, I got a trade alert.
Wait,
I got a trade alert. Trade alert.
Wait. I was gonna wrap the Tyreek Hill thing into your Eagles thing, but if you want to do a trade alert, go ahead and yell trade alert because I know that's what you wanted to do tonight.
Reel yourself back in.
Trade alert. It involves Pat's team's wide receiver 1. I traded Alan Lazard in the 306 for the 205 in this class.
You interrupted this to tell us that?
It was a Packers related trade, that's all.
That trade you could have actually saved for like a Twitter bit on our Twitter feed that you could have done by yourself.
Fine, cut it out.
Yeah,
cut it out of the show.
I expected when you interrupted Mike that you were going to usurp him and go with Tyreek Hill trade, and then he was that's the guy I was going to talk about. No,
exactly. I thought it was
totally off the deep end.
I traded for Tyreek Hill 2 weeks ago.
You're right, Jeremy. But wait,
let's talk about who else traded for Tyreek Hill besides me?
Hold on. What I was going to say with that Tyreek Hill, it was a big deal, but the one of the after effect thing is, at least down here in Florida, they keep saying that the Eagles are interested in Devonta Parker. So that's kind of why I was wrapping it in. And when you keep saying, look at your eyes, you keep saying that they were going to draft a wide receiver. Is there any truth to them looking at Devonta Parker? Because that was like all over the news today.
That would make a lot more sense because he's a veteran wide receiver that could play a role. He's good when he's on the field. He's not a great receiver, but honestly, the Eagles aren't going to be throwing the ball 45 times a game anyway. They just need someone in there that can get, 5 or 6 targets a game. And that's Devontae Parker when he's playing. So I'd be fine with that. And then you don't expend the draft capital on him.
And then I could yell trade alert because I traded him for a 3rd round pick today in one of my leagues. But
yeah, I can see that's a slippery slope when we start talking about the Aaron Lazards and the Devontae Parkers. I want to apologize to our audience. I will never bring an Alan Lazard trade up again.
Yeah, they're better than that, man.
So Pat, actually, when you were talking about Davante Adams and you were talking about where wide receivers land, you actually mentioned the Chiefs when you said that as well. So obviously it's because of the big news of Tyreek Hill coming down here to South Florida and everything. So how did you feel about that trade and the ripple effects that it had with Kansas City, with the Dolphins, maybe with the Eagles even?
Oh man, just mind blowing, like to have the Chiefs kind of decide to do. I'm not sure what the Dolphins are doing, first of all. Like, are they're going all in? Like, they're just giving up this like Ricky Williams-esque trade package to for the right to pay Hill this exorbitant contract. Yeah, it seems kind of strange. I mean, they were like kicking the tires on Deshaun Watson not long ago, and now they're like, oh, Tua is great. We're going to get him all these weapons. So if they're wrong about that, then, they're really screwed. Juju Smith-Schuster goes from playing like with the ghost of Ben Roethlisberger to being the number 1 receiver for Patrick Mahomes, at least temporarily. And, man, like seeing Waddle's value kind of get knocked down a little. Like, I just don't know what Tua had a pretty nice deep ball, I thought, when he was playing at Alabama, but we haven't really seen that since he's gotten to the NFL yet. And he's got these 2 guys, and I know their new head coach coming with this West Coast mentality from the 49ers. Like, maybe they want to do more catch and run on the short stuff, but like,
yeah, I expect it.
Yeah, but if you're not playing the vertical game when you've got Waddle and Tyreek Hill, like, what are you doing? You got to at least have that as a threat. So I just kind of don't get a lot of this trade. And weird for the Chiefs to, I don't know. I mean, maybe Tyreek Hill is just a dick, and they felt like this was the right time to unload him.
He's
like
28.
And he's 28. I mean, they can kind of like make another run at it, retool on the fly a little bit in what's going to be a really loaded AFC, and figuring that it's not enough to just have like a pretty stacked offense. Like, we got to build up the defense also, and they're going to have the picks to do it. I mean, they're going to be pretty scary if they play this right.
And that's the thing. Like, instead of spending $160 $20 million on a wide receiver. All right, well, let's just go draft one in the first round.
Yep.
Obviously, he's not going to be Tyreek Hill, probably not. But yeah, then we also have another first round pick, and then we have a couple second round picks to make some noise too, and actually, try to win another Super Bowl, because it's been a while. People forget it's been like 4 seasons since they've won a Super Bowl. They keep having home games in the AFC Championship and losing them because Andy Reid is just the best at that. But yeah, I think it's more the money. I actually like the trade for Miami, and I like that Tua now has Tyreek and Waddle, who could both be deep threats or both be yak monsters. Like, they're really fun chess pieces with Mike McDaniel. Now we'll get to see Tua actually play.
Yeah, they could even maybe split routes where you're not sure on a given, play which is going to run which route, and maybe switch places. I like Tyreek for Tua because he was an accurate passer. I know the deep ball we haven't seen, but accurate passer. And I mean, that's really all you need with Tyreek Hill. He creates after the catch like that. And we know that coach loves that to boot. So I think it's a great fit coach scheme. And with Tua, but I don't like that he left the Chiefs, of course, because he was just, top 5 wide receiver, like over and over and over. But, he's 28. Waddle, I think he's still going to get, his, and maybe he does become, more of a deep threat there. We'll see. I like that Juju on the Chiefs. I know we really didn't, get there yet, but he's been in the league for like 30 years and he's still only 25. No, he's been in the league 5 years and he's only 25. So they got and he just turned 25 in November. So they got a receiver that's, 3 years younger and, can play in the slot. I think he and Mahomes will probably be good. Deal was kind of crappy for him. And then they bring in MVS and pay him a lot of money. I don't know how I feel about that one as much, but they definitely reloaded a bit. Juju in the slot would be the perfect spot for him. He's just not an outside. I don't like it if they're trying to make him an outside guy. Hopefully their coach is smart enough. We've seen that he knows that, you play him inside and, dig routes and stuff like that. Like I've said before, he was great in 2018 like that. They got away from it a little bit and he's not a star anymore, but I like him with Mahomes.
It's interesting down here in South Florida, the whole offense is different. We also have Chase Edmonds and Mostert and then the Cedric Wilson thing. That's why they keep talking about Parker leaving, because they said Cedric Wilson immediately takes the number 3 spot. So Parker kind of falls down to number 4 down there. At least that's what everybody says down here. And, all over Dynasty Twitter and fantasy Twitter. That's why they were talking about him going to the Eagles. But I cannot tell you how many memes and everything I've seen all day for the last 2 days about different shots of Tua trying to throw the ball to Tyreek, and it's shots of some guy throwing it and it lands in front of his feet or like five yards down the field. Like, there's a lot of people that believe that he's not good enough to get the ball to both of those guys. But who knows? But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to Tyreek Hill, when he would his first couple seasons in the league, they used him on a bunch of just behind the line type of very close to the line of scrimmage plays. Like, I think Tua can pull that off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not like you have to throw the ball 70 yards down the field all the time. If you can hit someone in stride, 20 yards down the field while they're running, Waddle or Tyreek, they can do a lot of the rest of it. They'll be fine.
I agree. I think Tua is going to be fine too. Like, we need to give him a little bit of a chance. He was good. I think he's probably not as bad as people say. He might not be as great as people thought when he came out, but still, give him a chance. The offense with the young guys, that's when you have to be creative. When you have all these young players, which Tyreek isn't young, but Waddle and Tua and what they're going to be putting together, and the coach, they're going to be creative, and I think that's what they were missing probably. I mean, you watched Miami; they really just the coaching, all like it feels different now. I guess there's just a freshness to it, and they brought in players that can do things in the offense that they're trying to build with the explosive plays. I'm optimistic. I think Tua is definitely. I'm more optimistic about him now after all of this with the coach and with Tyreek, and I don't see how you could be negative now.
Oh, I still think he's slightly above average. That's all he is.
Well, we're a trade show. We joke about that sometimes, but with all this stuff that happened with all the wide receivers and the quarterbacks and everything changing, I mean, some of these players, their trade value has like gone way up. I mean, I know Shane really wants to talk about Alan Lazard, but if we talked about a different player that may have went up or down, I mean, Pat, what do you think? You've got the news with Tua, you got the news with Jameis Winston, you got the news with Matt Ryan, you got the news with Rodgers. Like out of all these quarterbacks, which ones like rose more or dropped more for trade value, do you think?
I mean, I think it's got to be Tua at the top, getting the weaponry he has now. I mean, with Gesicki and Tyreek and Waddle, like it sets up really nicely for him, which makes me interested to see how Shane is going to react when he sees the offer that I sent him a couple hours ago that involves a couple of guys we've been talking about.
Oh, and look at Shane's face. He's going to look right now.
I'm surprised he didn't see it 5 minutes after you sent it. That's the bizarre part about this.
Exactly. Maybe he has Pat on mute because he said he wanted to make fun of him.
No, okay. So I was on a call earlier, little baseball stuff, right? For the DLF draft guide, Dynasty draft guide, which will be dropping imminently. That's a word, right? That means soon.
Are you now going to do baseball podcasts and everything?
No. I stole that phrase from someone else. I heard someone on a podcast that say that they were talking baseball when what they were saying is like, I'm giving you some behind the scenes stuff. Anyway,
so then just say behind the scenes stuff.
You totally
say that all the time,
us, man.
I didn't understand what he meant either.
All right, fine, just cut it
pull
out.
Pull back the curtain. I'm not cutting anything out.
I was pulling back the curtain. I was on a call earlier for the DLF draft guide, which I was going to mention, Dynasty draft guide. I was going to mention that'll be launching soon, and I'll be doing some extensive work on that this weekend. Woo. And I get into this thing where I have nervous energy. So things start popping up on my phone, and I just swipe them away. And I thought
this is his excuse for not. Seeing
I thought I saw something that said Pat Fitzmaurice. I don't know why I always say his name wrong. But I just swiped it away and then forgot about it. And then I looked for it after the call, and I couldn't remember what it was. Like I was looking all over the place. I was like, did he DM me?
Well, look now. He mentioned it.
Yeah,
I know exactly. He complains when people don't answer him right away, and then when he doesn't answer, he has this long excuse that makes no sense. So screen trade alert, and look at the trade that Pat sent you.
Well, I hate this trade.
What? Tell us what it is.
Trade alert. I won't even say what side is which. On the one side, we have Brandon Cooks and Tua Tagovailoa. On the other side, we have Devonta Parker and Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, well, we know which side is which because you've told our audience a million times how many shares of Trevor Lawrence you have.
So he's like your boyfriend.
I'm giving him a chance to divest.
There we go. 30 minutes into it, I have to mark the F because it's the first time he said it. So
if there's a chance that it's not just that Urban Meyer was a putz and that Trevor Lawrence is bad, this is a chance for Shane to hedge a little bit. I
don't mean this in a mean way at all, Pat.
Yes, he does.
Why are your quarterbacks so fucking bad?
Oh man.
They were bad, yes.
Oh, poor Pat.
Trying to counter.
So when we were doing the startup draft last year, Shane, like everyone was going quarterback crazy. A 14-team draft. Yes. Everyone was going crazy. And I think they left like Christian McCaffrey at like 111 or 112 or wherever I was picking. And it was either that or like, Trey Lance at that point. So I'm like, I got to take McCaffrey.
Yeah. You don't like that. It doesn't feel good now though, right?
Well, I dealt McCaffrey for like 3 first-rounders.
Oh, that feels better.
That's amazing.
It really hurts though.
Right before he got hurt.
You're right, though. It does hurt when you're in one of these drafts and you see somebody like Christian McCaffrey sitting there and everybody else is taking quarterbacks. In the moment, you're like, oh, I got to take Christian. Right. But then in week 3, when everybody has 2 quarterbacks and you have like one and one kind of iffy one, and you have no
Baker Mayfield and
for getting, you have no prospects of getting another quarterback. It just hurts for quite a while.
Well, I had Tua, and then I had the Lock Bridgewater combination.
I can't tell you how many teams right now today that I have Tua and Bridgewater on the same team. Now that Bridgewater is backing up Tua in Miami, it doesn't help my teams where I have him sitting there. But
I guess I technically should have offered Shane Bridgewater also for some one of his bum backup quarterbacks. And you have quite a few. If I
Tyler Heineke or Case Keenum, both available.
I love Shane's face
and Mike
when you
White,
say that.
Kellen Mond as well. If you want some Kellen Mond, I'm looking at some counters here. I'm definitely gonna send Pat a counter because
All right. Well, while you send him a counter, I'll ask Jeremy the same question I asked Pat. Who do you think? Like, do you agree with Pat that Tua is the biggest riser out of all those? And did any of them fall because of what happened with their signings?
No, I think Tua is up there. I honestly don't hate him as much as Shane. And I remember Shane really liked Tua when he was being drafted. And you know, we talked about different things that season, and it didn't turn out. Honestly, I felt like things worked out pretty well because I didn't really own much of Tua, but I have acquired him since and have him in a couple or maybe 3 places. And I think, I think his value, just like Pat said, everything he said, you can't be negative about him now. You have to be more excited about him. But do you strictly mean quarterbacks changing places or just all these players?
I originally said all of them because there's so many of them. But before we go on to some of the other positions, we didn't really touch on it. But do any of you guys like the Matt Ryan going to the Colts situation?
Yeah. It's better than their original plan of Sam Ellinger. So
yeah,
I like it. I like it for Michael Pittman because Matt Ryan. Look, I'm not comparing Michael Pittman to Julio Jones, but Matt Ryan has a habit of, or at least a history of targeting, or at least he can target one monster wide receiver, and that could be Pittman.
Wide receiver one. Yeah.
So Pittman could still maintain that 25% target share, which really rooting for since I've traded for Pittman in multiple leagues this year. He's not worse than Wentz, you know what I mean? Statistically,
for sure.
You know, and I'm sure everyone knows this. If you've actually looked at the games and watched them, like Wentz's statistics look like completely made up. Like you don't understand. Like you're like, I've watched you play. I don't understand how your touchdown to interception ratio is so good. There's something you've cheated on here, you wizard. But yeah, I like Ryan there. I like it much better than Wentz. Much better than Wentz.
Yeah, it's an upgrade for the team and the other fantasy positions. Not super excited about Matt Ryan in general.
Jeremy, you weren't here last week, and the 1 week for you to miss, it was the biggest news for the Cleveland Browns. And Shane and Felix and I were laughing because you weren't there. But how did you feel about Watson going, and what do you think is going to happen with Baker Mayfield at this point?
All the Devy news you talked last week, all the rookie stuff. Yeah,
I know. You missed it all.
I mean, honestly, as a fan of the Browns for my entire life, right, and seeing everything, and we've talked on this show a lot, needled me a little bit, and it's fine because I'm not like those wallow in my own misery Browns fans, but I'm the guy who sits back and goes, you know what, it's almost impossible. It's totally improbable to suck for so long like the Browns did. Like you'd get, just some kind of luck or something. It's just like the law of averages, like the Browns successfully were bad time and time again. And I think it's because they changed things so often that they just kept, resetting to bad over and over. They never if they had just kept anyone, like the worst coach for a couple of years, maybe they would have won something. So I am ecstatic that they got a top 5 talent at quarterback on the team. And, I've had my things about Baker Mayfield going back a long ways. He fit the mentality of the team. He embraced the city. Hey, draft me. I'm going to come there. It was all good. He just, he didn't really play that well. I feel like the Browns weren't very kind to Baker Mayfield, right? I mean, he mowed the freaking stadium and took care of it, all that in his spare time. And now that's all he's going to be doing because he's not going to play for the team anymore because he's angry. I feel like that was lousy. I do trust in Andrew Berry and Stefanski and, the front office, even, with DePodesta with his involvement there. I don't trust Jimmy Haslam, but the owner, but I trust all those guys that are involved in the personnel decisions that they got, a good quarterback and they vetted things. The situation around Deshaun Watson, we've talked about for a long time. It's just weird. I mean, it's weird. Like the whole way, like what went on, how these women came to his house and, the massages. I don't know, what to believe there, but I've seen people who want to stop being Browns fans. And this is all really kind of sensitive stuff because you can never sound like a good person when you want to support somebody who might be a bad person. It's just that we don't know what he did yet. He refuses to say or admit anything or pay anyone off, all these things. And so I'm torn too, because I don't want to be a morally reprehensible person either. But having someone this good come to the team, I'm hoping that all of this was, more of a smear campaign or something like that. I hope that he's not this bad person. But just the talent alone and that quality of quarterback, I didn't think it would be possible to get a veteran to step in on a team that, is ready to win now. Getting a rookie isn't going to help them capitalize on the players that are there. So, caught up in all of it, hoping this guy's, and we've made jokes on this show a lot and stuff like that over the past year, hoping that, he's not some bad guy and that the Browns can keep winning. So there's just a lot to it. And I hesitate to say all of it here. I've talked to my wife about this, and, no matter what angle you come at it from, it easily sort of takes a turn for the worse, right? Talking about it. I just want to say that the people who would leave the Cleveland Browns and not, play fantasy football anymore because of one player and one team, maybe need to take a step back and look at the entire NFL, because it's really more of a statement about the NFL that we all on this show talking right now love. It's really more of a bad mark for them than it is for one team, one player, because they embrace a lot of things that, some of which were proven, or there's video evidence, yada, yada. I'm sorry to go on a tirade for so long. I really didn't even mean that. They've seemed to have said, if something happens in a court of law, we'll address it. If not, I don't know what to do. It's almost like they're a microcosm, like their own little subset of government that they manage themselves. But there are a lot of reasons that you could say, I'm going to boycott the NFL. And maybe this Deshaun Watson situation is one of them, except that right now he hasn't been indicted. He hasn't admitted anything, and there's no guilty verdict. So it's tough to be like everyone else and go on a witch hunt and just say, hey, just based on these things that I've read and know this guy's guilty, and I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. We don't know yet what's going on with him. So I'm going to sort of sit back and hope that, like everyone else, that maybe he didn't do those things, and that, they didn't get a bad guy to quarterback their team, because it's just an awkward situation. As a fan of the Browns, as a fan of fantasy football, it's been awkward for over a year, right? What do we do with Deshaun Watson? It's been tough for us, and we shouldn't have to worry about it,
I did see on the news today, they said that he was not going to be indicted, that they announced that he wasn't. But Pat, we do have a lot of trades on the show sheet. And actually, one of the trades that Shane did involves both of the quarterbacks that we just talked about just now. There's a Watson on one side and there's a Tua on the other side. So Shane, why don't you tell everybody with the trade you did, and let's hear Pat's thoughts on your trade.
I made a trade. Where was it? Oh, here it is. Wait, no, that's not it. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is.
I couldn't have lobbed it any easier to you, Shane.
Yeah, I made a trade in the Dynasty Hot Sauce League. I gave up Tua Tagovailoa, 2022 106, 2022 108, and I got back Deshaun Watson.
So, Pat.
I kind of like the Tua poo-poo platter. I know Shane hates this draft and doesn't value the first-round picks, even the middle round ones. But to what Jeremy was saying, like, I think maybe that's kind of the strength of this, that you can get like good wide receivers in the middle to later portion of the first round. So like, maybe Garrett Wilson is available at 106, or Drake London or Chris Olave at 108 or something like that. So I kind of, plus with the value gain that Tua has, I mean, he's definitely not on Watson's level. And I don't know, maybe it's not for underselling Watson. Like, Watson has been a top 5 quarterback the last 3 seasons that he's played, full seasons. I like him. I just think maybe it was like those 2 first-round picks kind of more than bridge the value gap from Watson to Tua, even though it's a pretty big gap.
Yeah. We ask you a lot of times, Shane, what your team looks like other than the trade you just made. So you got Watson, you gave away 2 first-round picks. Do you have a whole bunch of other picks too, or were those like the only picks you have? So
no, I got more picks, bro. I got more more picks.
You always have more picks. But who are your 2 quarterbacks now? Instead of Tua plus, now you have Watson plus.
Yeah, so see, I got Watson and who's that other guy? Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert. That's it.
There you go.
Oh my God, that is going to just beat people to death every week. Like there's going to be weeks where I drop 90 points on people just at my quarterbacks. Like I'm going to purposely not start every position just to beat people up. Like I'm going to be like, dude, you started 12 players. I started 9 and I beat you. Like, you should be ashamed of yourself. Like I'm going to do that next year to people.
Normally, Pat, when I throw that question to him, he always says he has like all these crappy guys on his roster, but he was so happy to brag about the 2 that he can start now.
It's hard to blame Shane for throwing in maybe a little extra juice to get that done. I can understand it.
Look, that's been my kick for the last 2 years now is just bludgeon people to death with quarterbacks. And, it hasn't always worked when, let's say I drafted Trevor Lawrence a little high, expecting him to be a superstar day one. And now we don't even know if he's going to be a good quarterback in the league.
I think he'll be good. Yeah.
But I think I feel a little safer. There's a little more pedigree there that we've seen in the NFL with Justin Herbert and Deshaun Watson. I'm feeling pretty comfortable that I'm going to destroy everyone and make them cry and beg for their moms.
Well, oh my God. Well, we have a bunch of other things on the show sheet. Pat, we would love for you to hang out with us and go into the Patreon show, if you don't mind. But
Absolutely.
Before we do the Patreon show, though, let's do this final trade that Shane, at the very beginning, all the way back 45 minutes ago, we all made a comment that you traded Justin Jefferson. So why don't we do that trade right now? We'll do that trade, and then we'll wrap everything up and go on to the Patreon show. So what did that Justin Jefferson trade entail?
And this is in HQ4, one of our many listener leagues. Made this trade with our buddy Eric Flynn from the great state of Ireland. Or country, whatever. I'm not sure how that works. It's not a state. I'm not sure. God. I think I know he's friends with Pat's producer, Colm Kelly, because Ireland's like literally the size of a neighborhood, I think.
So we small country.
yeah. Like I think they probably live in the same village. I think that's how Ireland works. I don't know. I'm an American.
They drink scotch from one of the peat
Here,
dogs.
bring it back.
I'm an American, so clearly I don't know anything about anyone else's countries, and I just assume that's how it works. Anywho,
there was a trade.
Yeah. I gave up probably the wide receiver 1, at worst the wide receiver 2 in all of fantasy football. 14-team Superflex, point that out. And I got Russell Wilson and Juju Smith-Schuster.
And just let everybody know, what does your team look like? What quarterbacks did you have or do you have? Because you traded a big wide receiver to get a quarterback.
Yeah, so prior to this, I was going to be starting Mac Jones and Carson Wentz.
Your 2 favorite guys.
Not feeling great about that. Not feeling great about that Carson Wentz. I don't particularly feel great about Mac Jones either, but look, Russell Wilson's top 12 quarterback. As much as I hate on him,
you got a QB1.
Yeah.
So Pat, how do you
throw the ball 35 times a game next year?
Pat, how do you feel about Justin Jefferson?
It's Jefferson for Wilson and Juju.
Yes,
that was the deal. Oh, I like the Wilson Juju side. Yeah. I mean, I like Jefferson. I think he's, the wide receiver 2 in Dynasty. I like Chase a little more, but hard to not like what he got back in return. 2 or 3 more good years of Wilson and, Juju, who just got a pretty big value spike, I think. I mean, I know we talked at length about him, Shane, on a different podcast not long ago where there was a lot of Juju hate going around, not from us, more from Jacob, I think, at the time. But
he was hating him, yes, very much.
I don't know if anyone has gained more over the last 2 weeks than Juju as far as value. He's way up there. So I like that deal a lot.
Yeah.
Awesome. So look, before we wrap up and go into the Patreon show, Pat, we jumped right into all this and we actually didn't talk about where people can find you and what you're doing now and everything. And so let everybody know where they can find you. Also, I wanted to know on a personal level, what are you doing? We're going to be together in the draft, but what are you doing in Vegas at the draft?
Yeah, so just That is less work related than just personal. It's something two of my closest friends and I had planned on going when it was going to be in Vegas back in 2020. And, we were in Vegas right before the start of COVID and plotting our return just months later. And that kind of got torpedoed. So finally making our long awaited revenge tour in Vegas and, just
revenge,
live it up and drink a lot and hang out on the strip and heckle draft picks. It's going to be great.
La vida loca.
And hang out with you, Mike. So,
I was going to say we're gonna actually do a couple things live from the draft. I'm gonna have all my equipment there in my hotel room. So if you want to come over and we talked already about you jumping on our show all the time. Maybe in Vegas you'll jump on our show while we're in Vegas.
Mike, if I'm not too smashed, I would love to do that.
No, even if you are smashed, we'll both do it. It'll be great. It'll be so much fun.
Waffle House. It'll be great.
Oh yeah, that's a totally different story. We should tell someday, Jeremy. All right, well, let everybody know where they can find you, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I'm at Fantasy Pros, and I have the weekly Fitz on Fantasy podcast, and people can find me on Twitter at Fitz_FF.
Awesome. And what'd you say,
Pat? You have another podcast that you do.
Oh yeah, thank you, Shane. I'm also co-hosting the Fantasy Pros Dynasty podcast. Forgot to mention that, which is weekly along with my good friend Scott Bogman. So I've been enjoying that, and good stuff. See, I didn't want to infringe on your territory here and try to sell a competing Dynasty podcast.
Oh, it's all good.
I was just being polite.
No, it's all good.
It is funny though. Shane interrupts people a lot of times, but this is now the second week in a row where he had to remind the guest of their podcast because he did it last week.
Sometimes these are helpful interruptions. Give Shane credit where it's due.
I love how he says sometimes. Shane, tell everybody about our Patreon account.
We have a Patreon account. Come join the patrons. You'll get better stuff than you do when you're not a patron. And this week I was actually going to dig into a roster for one of our patrons, but I'm actually going to have to put that on hold till after this weekend so I can finish the DLF Dynasty Guide. But become a patron. You get
digging into it.
But Shane had to throw in a Dynasty Guide.
You get swags. You get the Uncensored podcast. You get the Group Me chat, which, I mean, not to brag, but everybody in there is smarter than everyone else that plays fantasy football.
It is true.
It is the truth. I just listening to all the guys and gals rattle off all their titles that we helped them win. Beating me in some instances is great. So become a patron.
Awesome. Check us out on Twitter at DynastyTradesHQ. Check us out on YouTube at DynastyTradesHQ. Check us out on iTunes at DynastyTradesHQ. I believe this episode too, we filmed it. We did all the recordings, so we'll probably put this up on YouTube as well. So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go over do the Patreon show. Pat, I'm going to see you in 4 weeks. And say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Say goodbye, Shane.
See you next time.
Goodbye, Shane.
There was that really long pause.
Everybody got confused.
I know, really.
I don't know.